Maharashtra is one of the states where the UPA has suffered its worst drubbing. It's left with just 6 out of 48 seats, and clearly the NCP Congress alliance, which has been in power for 15 years, seems to be heading towards opposition. With me to talk about the outcome in Maharashtra is the outgoing Heavy Industries Minister, a senior NCP leader, Praful Patel. Mr. Patel, let's start with Maharashtra and then widen out and talk about the national election as a whole. In 2009 in Maharashtra, NCP in Congress had 25 seats. You're left with just 6. Would you accept this is a debacle?
Of course. I mean, there's no two ways of deciding whether it's a debacle or not. It is. And I don't think we expected it, for sure. I mean, to lose some seats, to win some is a different thing, but to lose by a wide margin, it also shows that there was anger in the people, there was maybe a vote for change, and maybe the leader of the opposition now, of course, to be the Prime Minister, I think gave a new, direction and an inspiration to the people.
I want very much to talk to you about why, in fact, this outcome in Maharashtra happened. But first, let's talk for a second about your own constituency, Bhandara. In 2009, you had a majority of over 250,000. This time, you've been defeated by over 140,000. That's a swing of 3.9 lakhs. Are you surprised?
I am not surprised. I'm absolutely stunned, for the simple reason that there was no negative wave of vote against me as I can see it.
It took you completely by surprise?
It took me completely by surprise, and there was no reason till the day of the polling, 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, I did not have a clue about what was happening in terms of the negative vote. And it's only later on that, people started saying that there was a strong opposition because of the Modi factor and whatnot. Maybe whatever the reasons now, it's no point going into that. But the fact is certainly that we have lost, and we have lost badly.
But even at this moment of time, 3 or 4 days later, Praful Patel has no idea why he lost.
No, yes, I told you earlier that there was a vote of anger against the government.
But that's a generalized vote.
Yeah, it is a generalized vote.
You have no idea what went wrong in Bhandara specifically that cost you such a huge majority of 250,000, turning into a defeat of 140,000.
No, I cannot pinpoint any specific reason, but a general mood or a general wave for change.
You became a victim of a general trend.
I think so.
Let's then talk about the general trend in Maharashtra first, before we talk about the general trend nationwide. What went wrong in Maharashtra? Was it just anti-incumbency after 15 years as a state government, 10 years as a national government? Or would you accept there is more to it than that?
I think, let's be honest, that the elections were to the parliament. I don't think the voting pattern of Maharashtra was decided only on the performance of the government of Maharashtra. Not to say that there could not have been an incumbency factor of 15 years against the local government, that I can't split into what was the percentage because of the local incumbency or the national incumbency. But the fact is that because it was the general election to parliament, I would like to also, say this, that, even before the election started, I think there was certainly a sense of negativity, in a way conceding defeat to an extent. Why I'm saying this? Because you've heard so many times, we will be able to get 140 seats from the Congress. There will be a possibility of forming a coalition by cobbling up others.
You mean Congress?
There will be a possibility of a third front government. I think all these factors, in a way, contributed to the people making up their mind that we want a stable government. We want a government which is led by one party.
You're saying Congress's comments, Congress's talk about a coalition, Congress saying that they could reach 140 was anyway indicating to the public and to the voter, this party is not going to make it. Why then vote for them? It's better to vote for someone who's confident of giving a stable government. Congress was, in a sense, in its language, in its comments, conceding defeat. I
think so, and I think that was reflected in so many statements made by various political parties, including the parties outside the UPA. Let's come together, we will do this, we will form a government. Somebody is saying from the south of India that, the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu can become the Prime Minister. Somebody is saying the Chief Minister of Bengal can become the Prime Minister.
I take your point that in fact there was confusion created in the minds of the electorate. The electorate didn't believe Congress was of a mind to win. It seemed as if Mr. Modi was the only likely winner. But before we come to the national picture, I want to focus for a while still on Maharashtra. I want to bring up 2 or 3 specific things that perhaps in Maharashtra contributed to what you agree was a debacle. For instance, did the taint of Adarsh, a corruption scandal that involved 4 former chief ministers, 2 ministers of state, a chief secretary, 3 additional chief secretaries, several senior officials, did that taint of corruption hobble you? You failed to fight it, and do you think you've paid a price for it?
Well, at least in my constituency, I could not sense that at all.
But across the state?
But across the state also. I don't think it was Adarsh as a specific issue which engaged the people. Otherwise, Ashok Chavan wouldn't have won. The point here is simple, that there was a mood for change. There was anger against the government. It could be on various counts. Adarsh may be one of the many things which may be subconsciously in the people's mind.
What about?
But it was not any specific issue that really came up and said that this is the reason. It's not like, you know, 89 when Bofors was the principal issue.
What about?
It wasn't 75 when the emergency was the issue.
What about Ajit Pawar and his image? I know that a white paper has, as far as the government is concerned, exonerated him in the land irrigation question. But many people believe there are still issues he had to answer which he hasn't. And then there were his intemperate remarks which often embarrassed your party. Was Ajit Pawar a factor in ensuring you lost seats?
I don't think so. It's, see, as I said, no specific reason. Maybe a culmination of many factors led to the debacle.
What about?
It's not a specific issue about a individual having said a particular thing, and that I'm very clear about.
What about Prithviraj Chavan's leadership? Many people felt he was slow to take decisions. He was sometimes even indecisive. Often he lacked assertiveness. Your own party has been often critical, both privately and publicly, of Prithviraj Chavan. Did his lack of assertive leadership create the wrong image, and did that cost you?
See, there's 2 ways of looking at it. On one side, the entire media says Prithviraj is a nice guy, he's very clean, honest, and he's really changed and, you know, improved things there. That's one side of the story. The other side is that yes, the government, which needs to be proactive, to be, you know, on its feet and running and, you know, answering and addressing issues immediately, maybe there is a time lag which is not to the people's liking. So I agree, but I still feel, and I say this very, very categorically, that I don't think that the reflection of the state government was the principal issue in deciding the election results.
It was national factors that cost you your seats in Maharashtra, not the image of what was happening either to the state government.
Maybe a percentage of it could be, but it's not the only reason.
You have state elections in October. Do you think there's any possibility of the NCP Congress alliance winning a 4th term, or do you now concede that after this parliamentary outcome, you know you're going to lose power in Mumbai as well?
No, absolutely. This would be wrong to assume that just because what's happened in Delhi is going to repeat itself in Maharashtra.
You really believe you can win again?
Yes, of course. I mean, let's be very honest, Karan. It's a very simplistic view. It's like saying 1 + 1 = 2.
Usually it is.
Yeah, it should be, but not in politics. Because you see, at the
You're
moment,
hoping 1 + 1 is 11.
No. The anger of the people at this moment was for different reasons, and I'm sure no person's anger remains constant. He also, one looks forward, one thinks, and there would be many positives which could, turn around. I'm not trying to say that it's going to be easy. I'm not trying to say that it's a cakewalk. But yes, you can't rule it out.
Anger sometimes requires a sacrifice to appease it. Do you think the time has come to change the Chief Minister? If you're going to give yourself a chance in October, that's just 5 months down the road, do you need a new man at the helm, more decisive, more assertive? Your party, in private and often even in public, is now saying you need a new Chief Minister.
See, the Chief Minister, if the Congress wants to change, it's their problem.
You're the ally.
No, but yes.
And you have more seats in the parliamentary level.
I only want to say that the only issue which needs to be decided right now is how do we go forward in the elections? Do we fight as a one unit in terms of trying to, cement all the differences, bring everybody on the table and start working from today and not waste any time?
Can that be done behind Prithviraj Chavan, or do you need a new leader to cohere behind?
Listen, both ways, if you look at it, there is no solution by just changing the Chief Minister. Because the time is short. If a new person comes, you mean to say in 90 days before the Code of Conduct sets in, some great miracles can happen by a new person? If at all something can be done, it could be by the same set of people. But the question is of intent, and I think this is a great wake-up call for all our friends in Maharashtra.
Let's now come to the national election, where the UPA had 262 MPs collectively, you're reduced to just 59. Once again, would you accept, even at the national level, like what happened in Maharashtra, this is another debacle?
Of course it is a debacle.
There's no doubt about it.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, at the end of the day, when you've been reduced to these numbers, I mean, what can you say?
Did you think it would be as bad as this?
Well, I don't think it was looking so bad, at least on the face of it. And I certainly would have given at least another 50, 60 seats to the UPA, if not more.
At least 50, 60 more?
More, had I assessed it on the basis of what we were seeing during the campaigning of the elections. I did not expect, I mean, while we have also been reduced to 6 seats out of 9, but the fact is that the Congress, one could never imagine, could have come down to 44 seats. It is the only, still, in spite of the BJP winning the, clear mandate of 285 seats on its own, I still believe that the truly pan-India party is still the Congress.
So the outcome of 44 seats for Congress has truly shaken you.
Of course.
Really shaken you.
I'm sure it's shaken us and it's shaken everybody in the country to the extent, as I said, that it is truly the only pan-India party even now.
Let's look at some of the reasons why Congress has been reduced to just 44 by the UPA has been reduced to just 59. To what extent did the image of corruption, the series of scandals that happened particularly in UPA too, and which convinced people either that this government was complicit or it was unwilling and unable to tackle the problem, to what extent did that cost you with the people?
No, of course it cost us hugely. We didn't really go out to explain our position. I'm sorry to say, I mean, a lot of people have been criticizing the Prime Minister. I would also chip in to an extent, but I also feel that the Congress party and the Prime Minister could have all come out with clear communication. You see, the 2G was not a policy failure, it was only a policy implementation failure.
Look at his explanation. He talked about coalition compulsion, suggesting complicity or ineffectiveness.
But that is wrong. I don't agree with that viewpoint. In fact, if you remember that the whole political process in UPA 2 broke down, it was only reduced to the Congress party thinking that they are the sole custodians of the government. Mr. Sharad Pawar and myself, we had even voiced our differences. We had not attended a few cabinet meetings, only to register a point. We were not walking out of the UPA.
But that point wasn't registered in the end.
No, but it didn't, unfortunately. That, while the political dialogue started in bits and pieces, and eventually again went back to the same old story.
Was it Congress arrogance or stubbornness? What was the problem?
Well, I don't know. I can't say. But all I can say is that we were never part of a political dialogue. I can understand we may not be big party. We cannot be the, calling the shots on everything. But of course, we all needed to be involved in the process. In fact, UPA 1, whether Congress likes to admit it or not, but they certainly had a much wider range of consultation.
Then
even the left and UPA 2, unfortunately, we were all reduced to just being bystanders by whatever the government chose or the Congress did.
A very important thing, you're saying either the arrogance or the stubbornness of Congress, which reduced critical allies like the NCP to bystanders, meant that in fact your input wasn't listened to. Congress behaved as if they were the government on their own, and their own inability to handle 2G or the bigger image of corruption cost all of you collectively this election.
Why didn't the JPC be agreed upon in the beginning? I think if the JPC, which was something where the entire dialogue with the opposition collapsed for the whole term of Parliament.
And they held up the JPC for one whole session.
Yes, if the JPC would have been agreed to, then I don't think the Parliament's functioning would have come to the standstill it had for the next 4 years.
Who do you blame? The Prime Minister, Sonia Gandhi, or advisors around Sonia Gandhi who misled her?
Well, I can't say for who was at fault, but collectively that was the end result. And as I said, there was no political dialogue amongst us as to decide what should be the right way forward.
When you made these points clear, either to the Prime Minister or Mrs. Gandhi, what response did you get?
Well, where was the question of making it clear? We've never been having a chance to make it.
They wouldn't even meet you?
No, of course we used to meet, but we were never having a political dialogue. So we were limited to our limited agenda of going and talking about our own work.
There was no political dialogue between the Congress and its critical allies?
Not on matters which concern the nation.
Which
not on matters which concern the larger functioning of the government. Certainly to the limited extent of what was our role, defined role, Mr. Pawar's role in the government, yes, to that extent. But when you talk of larger political process, I don't think we were part of the larger political process.
They didn't treat you as allies. It sounds as if they treated you as subordinates.
No, I'm not going to use the word which you are using, but I certainly feel that they could have engaged with us much more meaningfully.
There's another aspect of the government's image that many believe cost this government dearly. The belief that the Prime Minister was weak, that he was slow to make decisions, that he was submissive to Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi. The whole episode of the ordinance when Rahul said it should be trashed and torn up sort of characterized how the Prime Minister, even sitting abroad, was not treated properly by the Gandhis. Did that cost you? The Prime Minister's weakness and submissiveness, the fact that the Gandhis called the shots, he didn't?
I have said it earlier, and I have no hesitation saying that now, that the entire ordinance issue was completely mishandled. It could have been handled with more finesse, grace, and also the Prime Minister's reaction should have been much more, I would say, more forthright, to be able to put every, the issue firmly on the table, rather than, everybody felt, what is happening? Is the government in control? Is it not in control? Is the Prime Minister doing what he should be doing? I mean, several questions got raised, but it was not only in the ordinance issue. I think over a period of time, that impression got built up. He's a fine man. I have the highest respect for him. I've worked with him for 10 years. I can't be complaining about the man and his, ethics and the way he treats his, colleaagues. But at the same time, I really don't know why, I'm sure, and I can admit that this entire UPA 2 has been a failure of communication.
But also a failure of leadership. Assertive, strong leadership which the country wanted, which it expected from the Prime Minister, simply wasn't there.
But Karan, that is exactly the point, that you see, these are the issues which the Congress party dealt with it on its own, where we as allies had very little role, and we didn't have any process where even our minor consultation process would have been useful, was never adopted.
Did either you or Mr. Sharad Pawar ever approach the Prime Minister and say, you need to be more assertive, you need to create an image for yourself as a leader which is missing because it's going to cost all of us? Did you ever have that discussion?
You see, these issues cannot be discussed by us. At the end of the day, he is a nominee of the Congress party. He may be the Prime Minister, of course, for the whole country and for us, but in a political process, I think we had very little say.
So these thoughts went unexpressed?
Well, yes, I do think, and between Mr. Pawar and myself, and I'm sure between many Congress colleagues who I can't name on a television show, they certainly expressed these same feelings with frustration many a times.
Congressmen themselves told you they expressed these feelings, but they got no response.
Yes, I think they were expressing their apprehensions, their frustrations, they were venting it, but of course they were never saying it publicly, and for us, we could only be listening. We could never be, getting part of that part of the process.
Let me bring up something else with you. Many people believe that over the course of the 10 years that UPA ruled India, the country changed quite phenomenally. But Congress and perhaps the policies of UPA failed to recognize and respond to that change. As a result, you continued with right-based entitlement, whereas the country had wanted empowerment and material gain. Was there a sense in which the country changed and your government and its policies were out of sync and out of date?
Well, I think, Karan, the government did exemplary good work. There's no doubt about it. People may, at the end of the day, it will be all judged in history. You just can't limit it to a 2G or a CWG, which eventually time will prove how much is a scam and how much is the loss to the government. All these things, have been blown out of proportion. But the fact is, yes, it left a bad impression in the people's mind. But I would like to say that certainly, that on many of these entitlement issues, they haven't really, like the right to food. We passed it with so much of, noise and song and whatever, but we really didn't get any benefit out of it at all. Neither has Narega has benefited us the way it should have benefited us. Neither many of the schemes, including, I would say, that any government, including the new government, I can only give one piece of advice, that if you want better governance for the country and not for a political party to gain or lose, I think even the RTI needs to be amended suitably, so that at least people, I'm not saying it shouldn't be kept, but it should be amended suitably.
You're making a very interesting point, although you've made it only in passing, that the rights-based policies didn't yield the benefit, particularly the political benefit you were hoping for. Maybe policies that were more directly targeted at empowerment and giving people material gain would have brought you better results.
Well, look at UPA 1. We gave the interest waiver, interest subsidy for the farmers. We gave the farm loan waiver to the farmers. I think those schemes directly went to the beneficiary, and probably people responded and reacted far more positively.
One other question. At the end of the day, this election was in fact perceived as a contest between Narendra Modi leading the BJP and Rahul Gandhi leading the UPA. He may not have been the direct announced official prime ministerial candidate of the UPA, but he was the face of the UPA as far as the world was concerned. Or would you accept the comparison between the two went decidedly in Modi's favor? Rahul simply didn't match up. He always looked the second.
I always felt that if Rahul Gandhi would have been projected, there wouldn't have been this, I would say, the kind of disconnect with the people, because people were on one side seeing Rahul Gandhi as the face and yet not being announced as the Prime Minister.
So he should have been formally projected?
I think it would have been far more better. I don't know what the results at the end of the day would have been. It maybe would have been same, maybe would have been better for the Congress. That's a different thing.
But do you think he has it in him to be Prime Minister? Has he got the qualities of leadership that the country recognizes? Most people feel that in fact he's a nice guy, he's got appealing dimples, but he hasn't got political sound common sense. He isn't a politician.
Well, he's been in Parliament for 10 years, and I'm sure he's
loads of people have been in Parliament for 10 years.
And he's born into a political family, and I'm sure he has a lot of people to give him sound advice.
But clearly they weren't
wish him well. I can't say anything beyond that.
But clearly they weren't giving the right advice, because his campaign never really got off the ground at any point of time. It never captured the imagination of the country. You have to concede that.
Well, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and therefore I don't want to contest that.
All right, you've conceded my point in a very diplomatic way. Let's look briefly to the future. How long will the NCP-Congress alliance last? How long will NCP continue to be part of the UPA?
Well, I don't think, success or failure should alter equations. We have been part of the government for 10 years, and tomorrow if we are out of power, which doesn't mean that we leave our friends and allies. It's not done in politics. Of course, there are many situations in politics which come and go and change many equations. It's not that it's never happened in the past.
But it won't happen in this instance?
But I don't think there is any necessity for NCP to rethink about its position vis-a-vis the Congress.
I'll tell you why I asked, because what did Mr. Pawar mean when yesterday he suggested that he was wondering whether he'd be invited to Mr. Modi's swearing in, and he also said that he was the only UPA leader who had a line of communication to Mr. Modi, and people wondered, is Mr. Pawar finding a clever, subtle way, and he's a master of subtlety, a clever, subtle way of moving across?
Not at all. I see, communication with Mr. Modi is not something which should be perceived as, there's some political game behind it. I mean, I'm sure Mr. Pawar speaks to Mr. Modi if need be. I can speak to Mr. Modi. I know him so well. I have spoken to him on so many occasions.
But behind the speech, is there an attempt to quietly move across?
No, there is no move.
You rule it out completely?
No, we have fought against the NDA, against Mr. Modi. We are victims of...
Stranger things have happened. Stranger things have happened in the past, and I'm asking you once again, is there any possibility that you will cross over and join the NDA?
No, I don't think so.
Don't think so?
No, I'm saying no.
Categoric?
Yes, categoric.
No, unequivocally, full stop.
Why are you getting into such, situations when I'm saying that we are not...
Because the smile on your face suggests something else to the words you're using.
No, this was in context to an earlier question when you said that should we have spoken to Mr. Modi or not? Of course we know Mr. Modi. We will continue to talk to him. He's going to be our Prime Minister. We're going to be in Parliament. We're going to be meeting him on many occasions for many things.
Two quick questions before I end the interview. First of all, what is your view of Mr. Modi, who now has 282 MPs behind him from his own party, and with his allies 336? What's your view of Mr. Modi and the Prime Ministership that begins on Monday?
Well, I wish him well. I hope good things will happen for our country, irrespective of whose government it is. Ultimately, the country is primary and it has to move forward. It has to, because we have a huge number of aspirations of our own people which have to be met. So to that extent, we are constructive opposition for him. We are not going to be coming in the way of, anybody just for the sake of opposition.
Do you worry that he might actually survive in power as Prime Minister for 10 years, maybe even more? Many people think that is now looking possible. Well,
when Rajiv Gandhi came, everybody said, 20 years, you're not going to see a new Prime Minister. I am not trying to. When Narasimha Rao came, everybody said, he's unwell, he's going to be there for 6 months as a caretaker and somebody else will take over. When Vajpayee lost in 2004, India was shining and everybody thought that the next 5 years was Vajpayee's.
So who knows what the future holds?
So while I wish Mr. Modi well, I have no prediction, I can't give a prediction for his...
My last question. Can Congress or the UPA And I'm saying UPA on purpose because you're saying you're sticking with the UPA. Can Congress or the UPA return to power in 2019 with Rahul Gandhi the way he is today, or does he need to reinvent himself comprehensively before you people have a chance of coming back to power?
Well, I don't want to give any statement about Rahul Gandhi. All I can say is, if BJP from 2 in 1984 came to power 10 years later, any political party, however down in the dumps, can... You've seen Jayalalitha wiped out and come back to power. You've seen many political leaders in our country being wiped out, and you never had heard that, they could come. Chandrababu Naidu is a classic example in the current time. 10 years ago he was king, 10 years he was in the dumps, and now he's back again.
Never say die, in other words.
Yes. Thank you, Karan.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.